Okay, I just want you to remember the biggest difference you're going to find is in the domain and range of a quadratic when it comes to the word problems. Okay, so most of the time we're going to be in quadrant 1. You are used to, if I could just do this for a bit, right? You are used to seeing the entire curve, and we would have our x and y axis like that, and the domain would be all of the x values, right? All the real numbers, and the range would always be the standard, right? In this case, it would be less than the highest y value you achieve here. But that's now changing. We are actually we have to come in and realize, okay, this is a word problem. If this is time, right, I can't have negative time, right? We start at 0, right? So it's only from here to here within the context, right? When that object lands, right? Somebody kicks the ball, right? Goes up, reaches the high point, which is our vertex, then it lands at some point. This could be time, right? This could be height. You could have a scenario where this is distance, right? Horizontal distance versus height. You could have money and time. You could have money and items produced, right? So the context restricts us, right? Restricts us. So we don't consider these quadrants here. We're just just sticking to quadrant 1. There will be instances. I can think of one where, let's say you have a pelican, right? Up here, spots a fish. Look at that, right? Looks like an infinity symbol cut off, right? Anyways, right? So we'll dive for it, catches it, and then come back up and then maybe land somewhere, right? It's a parabola that's pointing up, right? So in this case, you are in quadrant 1 as well as quadrant 4. So sometimes that happens, but most of the time we're restricted to 2 quadrants. 90% of the time it's just quadrant 1. It's where the action happens, right? But always keep that in mind. We're gonna see this at times, right? Where you do have a negative y value, right? Possibility here. So back to page 32. Just wanted to give you kind of like a bit of a snapshot of what's happening, what's coming our way. So you will notice that for both the domain and the range, right? That we have a start and we have an end, right? We have a start, most of the time 0, and then it's x-intercept here. For range, we'll find the lowest y value, and the vertex is most of the time going to be the highest y value. Lowest y value, y of the vertex. Okay. In retrospect, I feel like you need to be very careful with this. This is kind of like in general, but if your parabola points up like this, the vertex is not going to be the highest point. So you're going to have to be careful in that scenario. Okay. So let's do some of those examples I asked you to try, and you did, right? You did. On page 33. I didn't post the key. I just wanted you to give it a try and see how that goes. Page 33. So again, we'll have the domain and range, right, for this particular scenario, and you know that, right? There's time here and height and yards. Okay. So here, let's look at our x values for the domain, right? So we start here, we see the graph, and then it stops there, right? So our domain is represent along the x-axis. You always travel along the axis for the domain, and the range should be going along the y-axis. So as long as you can see a curve, you keep going. So we're going to go from 0 all the way to 17, right? For the x values, we go from 0 to 17. So we would be, if you use set notation, you'd say, hey, this is going from 0, and we can use t for time, right? We can put a lowercase t there. That's the variable. You have to use a variable within the context, right? And it's going to be less than or equal to 17. Notice the equal to, right, tells you that it could be exactly 0 all the way to 17. Or if you use interval notation, this particular case, the domain for this one would be 0 to 17. There you have it. And for the range, you got to be ready for this. It's early in the morning. Well, it's not that early, but we just woke up, right? Range, you see a curve. Oh, it stops there, Mr. Jackson. No, it doesn't. Keep going. It stops here. That's where it stops. After that, you don't see a curve anymore. So we're going from along the y, right? We're going from 0 all the way to, not 15, all the way to 18. This is the 18 mark right here. Okay. So you basically are saying the values that are allowed for my y variable, which in this case is height, right? So I'm going to call that h. So we're going from 0 all the way to 18, or 0 to 18. No variable required for interval notation. So maybe I'll give you a minute or two. If you did this already, just maybe review it. Like, am I still confident that that's the domain and range? But given this scenario here, right? What is my domain and range for the two? Do both of them that are still on this page, right? Come up with the domain and range. And if you have it already, way to go. There's something about giving it a go and then coming back and reviewing it. Take a few minutes. Okay, ready? So for my domain here, right, the curve starts right at the beginning here. Goes. I still see curve, and it stops there. So you're essentially going from 0 all the way to 10 for your x values, right? So you can go 0 and time, right? All the way. You go by whatever variable I introduce. Like later on, you'll know the variable. This goes till 10. Or if you want to use interval, it goes from 0 to 10 like this. Next, range. I go from -20. I go left to right for domain. I go bottom up for range, right? So still curve, still see a curve until you reach the maximum here, right? So you can go like this if you want. So we're going from -20, right, all the way to positive. You look at the y value, okay? +3. This is not drawn to scale. This is just a practice, right? So we're going to see, we're going to use h for that. So we're going to go from -20, right? H will be between -20 and +3, like that. And in grade 10, I don't think your teachers told you to use squiggly brackets, or no? They may have, like I'm telling them, tell students to use these brackets, because for pre-cal you don't need it, but in grade 12 applied, the province will take marks off if you don't have them, okay? Or from -20 all the way to 3. Okay, so that's your domain and range for that one. So this is like, I don't know, make up a story, right? A submarine, right, is down here, launches a projectile under the water. This is the water surface, right? Reaches a maximum height and then lands somewhere, right? So kind of like try to picture what's happening there if you can. Next, we have our domain here, and I'm not going to use markers all the time. This is just for you to kind of wrap your head around this. So something's happening here. Something is being thrown or launched, and then it lands above the ground, right? So it could be, you know, you're jumping and you're trying to reach a surface, right? So that's what it is. And so we would have our domain would go from 0 here, x value 0, all the way to where does the story end? Where does the curve end? It's 4.5. Okay, so time in this case would be 4.5. And I used to not do domain and range at all because I'm like, grade 10 took care of that, but it is a hard concept and we need to review it before I jump in. Okay, so we go all the way to the highest point there for the range. So you would say, hey, the lowest, oh, I made a mistake. You see that, right? I don't think I have, oh yeah, I do have whiteout. There is no curve here, right? This is no curve. Look at that. Thought I'd never use whiteout because I don't make mistakes. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Nice try. Maybe that was good that it happened so you see, right? Hey, the curve starts there, right? Like it's that little wedge for my y values. The curve only occurs between that, right? So let's try this again. I'm going from 13 all the way to 32. So I'm going to use h again. So I'm going to go 13, h, 32. And I'm going to do the interval notation now. 0 to 4.5. And here it's 13 to 32. Make sure the lowest comes first, the greatest second. We're good? All right. Oh, maybe what I should do is just do this for all the domains, right? Okay. Let's keep going. Page 34. Oh yeah, I introduced that one because this is brand new. You're the first group to see this question here. Did I assign this one too? I'm not sure. Let's give it a try. So domain and range for both of them. Okay. Try to come up with a domain and range. Use a pencil, right? Use a pencil. Maybe you do your domain and range here, somewhere in here, so you can, like, if you get it wrong, you're not going to erase it. You're just going to go not right. That way you know, right? You can remember your mistake. So if you looked at this curve, which is different than what we've seen so far, it's pointing up, right? A would be positive. What would be my domain and range for that one? And what would be the domain and range in this scenario here? Please give it a try. I'm going to get my... So you did it, right? Let's give this a try. For my domain, I'm seeing a curve starting right at 0, right? That's where it starts. And I'm scanning, and it goes all the way to 2.35. So I'm going to kind of bring this down, and I'm going to make a note that the greatest x value is 2.35. So we could go time, right, all the way to 2.35 included, or 0, 2.35. domain. How did you do? And then my range, the lowest that I see here, focus on the y values, is 0.18. Okay? Then you scan, right? This point is lower than that, so we actually have to go all the way up here to 3.45. Right? So my range is between these two values. Okay? So I have to write down 0.18, sorry, 0.18 all the way to, I'm going to use h for height again, all the way to 3.45, or 0.18 to 3.45. Okay. I'm going to have an AC with a lot of domain and range tomorrow, so get ready for that. For this curve here, I'm just going to block this off. Let's see if we can do it just using interval notation. For my domain, I'm going from 0 all the way to, this is actually happening at 100, right? This right here is the 100 mark for the x value, all the way from 0, right? So 0 to 100. And in terms of my y values, this is negative 37.85. Which one is higher, this point or this point? Just look at the numbers. This is 30, this is 37. So it's a bit messy here if you want to use my method, but I'm going to just say 37 there. So my range goes from negative 37.85 all the way to 37 positive. Bingo, right? Oh, this one has distance and height. So let me just do the set notation here. So this would be from 0 for d for distance, right? All the way to 100, or negative 37.85 less than or equal to h for height, 37. Okay. Domain and range. All right. Pretty interesting stuff, eh? You're excited. Now you've done domain and range again. Let's look at this. This is just a quick, I honestly am not even going to quiz you or test you on this, but this helps students realize something here. This is in general form, right? If you have a general form and b is equal to 0, if b is equal to 0, meaning that middle term is gone, there's no x term, your parabola, your graph is going to be more like this, where the y-intercept is also the vertex. It just happens to be the case. Okay. If b is not equal to 0, just focus on that. If b is not equal to 0, because sometimes you're going to wonder, like, what's happening, right? This is, your y-intercept is still going to be very obvious where it crosses the y-axis, but then the vertex is going to be somewhere here. That is the biggest difference. So sometimes, like, hey, my y-intercept is also my vertex, what's going on? It's okay, it can happen, right? So when vertex, right, is going to be equal to the y-intercept, so the example of an equation like that would be y is equal to negative 9.7 x squared plus 5, let's say. There's no b. There's no b is equal to 0. That's why there's no x term. Right? No x term. It's just x squared and constant. Okay. Here, an example for something that would look like this would be y is equal to negative 9.7x squared plus 3x plus 5. Okay, I'm going to highlight the plus 3x because b is not equal to 0 there. So it just shifts the parabola. And I will show you this using Desmos. It's the best way to do it. So the y-intercept is 0, 5 here for this one. 0, 5. It's still 0, 5 for this one. Because watch, right? The constant is 5. But the vertex is not going to be matching the y-intercept. So watch this. So this is just in general form. And I have A, B, and C here so I can move shift values. So watch what happens to the parabola. Right now, the vertex is also your y-intercept. But if B changes, right? See how the vertex, you see the little dot on the vertex? It's no longer the y-intercept, right? If B is equal to 0, it's right sliced in half along the y-axis. So any value of B that is not 0 will shift it, right? So just keep an eye on that because, for example, if you're anybody like cliff diving or jumping off a cliff into the lake, right? A lot of people love that. If you just run and fall, your parabola would look like this, right? So you would start at that height and just fall. But if you jump up just before, right? Your parabola would probably look more like this, right? You would jump up, reach a maximum height, and then fall, right, to the water. All right. So that's just an aside in case that happens. Don't be alarmed when this happens. You should remember, oh, B is equal to 0. I expected that, right? Let's keep going here. Let's do a word problem. This is going to be a full-on word problem from scratch. And I think I'm going to stop the video and just start a new one.